Welcome to Season 2, Episode 5, where we embrace the shift within you. Nobody handed you a certificate the day you became a real leader, because the shift happened quietly in ordinary decisions and small moments when you shifted the way you carried yourself differently. Welcome to the Unbreakable Woman's Journey. Hi, I'm Jules, a coach, a mentor for new and accidental clinic managers who were handed a title, a team, and exactly zero training, but kept showing up anyway. We are in season 2, and each episode we go one layer deeper into what it actually means to lead from the inside out. And today we are going to one of my favorite places, inside, within. Last week we talked about becoming the calm in the pressure, how to stop reacting from an empty tank and start responding from a grounded place. We talked about self-care, not as a luxury, but a leadership requirement. Today, we are going one layer deeper than behavior. We go to identity because the real question is not just how you act when things get hard, it is who you are becoming in the middle of it all. This episode is about the shift within you, the one that does not announce itself, the one you only notice in hindsight, when you realize you stopped asking for permission to lead and just start doing it. There was not one big moment when I suddenly realized I had changed. It was not like the clouds opened and the printer toner glowed and a voice from heaven said, "Congratulations, you are now a leader." It was much more quiet than that. The shift happened over time in ordinary decisions, in the way I started carrying myself inside the clinic. And truthfully, I did not even see it happening while it was happening. At first, it felt like I had to ask permission for everything. This is in the beginning. If somebody needed a new printer, I would think, oh, I should go ask first for permission to purchase. If someone needed to swap a shift or adjust their schedule, I felt like I had to run it up the chain. Not because I was incapable, but because I was still learning to trust the authority that came with the role. I was treating every decision like it needed a committee meeting and a permission slip. But over time, something changed. If the clinic needed a printer, I bought the printer. If the schedule needed a reasonable adjustment, I made the call. Now, if an employee needed flexibility and I trusted the reason, I handled it. I stopped turning every operational decision into a dramatic courtroom scene with justifications. And I want to be clear, this was not me becoming arrogant. It was not me climbing onto some high horse with a clipboard and power trip. That is not leadership. That is insecurity wearing a name badge. What changed was that I began to trust myself more in the process. Now, that may sound small, but for a new clinic manager, leader, that's not small at all. That is identifying shift in real time. I also noticed I was not apologizing for every decision anymore. I was not over explaining every move or trying to soften every sentence until it had no backbone left. I could communicate clearly without being harsh. I could make a decision without feeling like I had to defend my existence afterward. But here's what I want to be careful not to leave you with, because this is where new leaders sometimes overcorrect. Finding your authority does not mean you stop being human. It means you know when to use it, when to set it down. Know when to use it and when to set it down. I had an employee once who felt completely left out of the loop. A schedule change has not been communicated properly. And instead of coming to me professionally, he texted me. And it was not a polite text. The old version of me would have snapped back, or gone silent and stewed, or pulled rank and reminded him who he was talking to. But something had shifted in me by then. I put the phone down, thought about it, where he was standing, not where I was standing. I knew this employee, I knew the clinic needed him, and I knew he needed this job. And I also knew that somewhere underneath that rude text was a person who felt unseen and unheard. So I humbled myself. I looked at the situation from his angle and I apologized, not because I was afraid of him, not because I was defending my authority, but because it was the right thing to do for the relationship and for the clinic. I did not use my title as a reason to demand respect. I used my character instead. And that, my friend, is the difference between a manager who has a position and a leader who has earned the room. What changed was that I began to trust myself and I began to trust my team. I trusted that my employees wanted to do the right thing all the time. I also trusted that they cared about patients, and because I trusted them, I did not have to grip everything so tightly. That inner shift started to ripple outward. When I became calmer, they had more room to step up and breathe and be themselves. When I stopped over-functioning, they had more room to take ownership. When I stopped asking permission for things I was already responsible for, the team started to feel the steadiness of leadership instead of the nervous energy of someone still waiting to be approved. And here is the moment that made it all click for me. My boss went on vacation. At first, I felt uncomfortable, like, oh my gosh, he left me with his office, me on the helm. I was used to having him nearby as the final safety net. If something came up, I could ask. If I felt unsure, I could check. But when he was away, I had to make a different choice. I could either interrupt his time off with every minor problem, or I could respect his rest and handle what was mine to handle to begin with. And in a clinic, minor problems do not wait politely until the doctor comes back from vacation. The printer still jams, the AC still breaks, we still have plumbing problem, the schedule needs to shift, someone needs an answer, the team still looks around and asks, what are we going to do? So I started making the decisions, not the huge high-risk calls that needed his input, the everyday operational things that keep a clinic breathing. And every time I made one of those decisions and the building did not collapse, something in me settled. I realized I was not making decisions out of overconfidence. I was making them out of prepared responsibility. And there is a big difference between those two things. That is when I understood something. I had never quite put it into words before. When my boss trusted me enough to leave the clinic in my hands, part of my growth was learning not to interrupt that trust with unnecessary self-doubt. Honoring his confidence in me meant actually using it. Now, I want to give you 3 things I learned through that slow, quiet shift because I think they will save you years of waiting for something that was already yours. The first thing is this: confidence does not always come before the decision. Sometimes it comes because of it. You may be waiting to feel fully ready before you act, but readiness is often built in the doing, not before. You make the call, you learn from it, you adjust, and somewhere in the process you realize, I can actually do this. Okay, lesson number 2. The second thing is this: over explaining and over apologizing are not the signs of humility. Trust me, I know. They are signs of leader who has not yet given herself permission to stand in her own authority. You can be clear without being cold. You can still be decisive without being dismissive. And when you find that balance, your team will feel it before you even say a word. Here's the third thing, and this one is important. It is that trusting your team is not a risk. It's a strategy. When you loosen the grip, you create space for people around you to rise. And when they rise, the whole clinic rises with them. You know, that saying, all tide raises all the boats. You don't have to carry everything. That was never the job. And now I want to give you a simple tool to help you identify where you are in your own shift. I call it the Ownership Audit. Get it? Ownership Audit. There's 3 questions. It's 5 minutes. You can do it at your desk, in your car, or anywhere you have a quiet moment. Ownership Audit. 3 questions. Here we go. Number 1. Where am I still asking for permission for something that is already mine to decide? Number 2, where am I over-explaining or over-apologizing when a clear, calm decision would serve my team better? Number 3, where am I gripping so tightly that my team cannot step up? And what would happen if I trusted them with it? Now, those are the 3 questions, not to judge where you are, but to see it clearly. Because you cannot embrace a shift you have not yet noticed that's happening inside you. Now, if today's episode gave you a moment of recognition, if you heard something and thought, that is exactly where I am right now, then I want you to take one step. If today's episode resonated with you, the best thing you can do right now is to follow the show so you can never miss an episode, and then share it with one manager who needs to hear this today. Someone who was handed a title and is still figuring it out what to do with it. Because sometimes the most generous thing you can do for someone is to hand them the words for what they are already feeling. The shift within you is not something anyone else can give you. It is not a promotion, it's not a title or a performance review. It is this quiet moment when you realize you have already become someone you used to hope you would be. So do not just learn how to manage tasks. You learn how to carry authority without losing your heart. And that, my friend, is the whole journey. Until next time, my friend, stand and deliver on trust. Aloha!